Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. When I married Daniel, I knew he came with history. A teenage son from a previous marriage, a career that demanded long hours, and a heart that seemed worn out. I convinced myself I could live with it. We had a beautiful home, comfort, routine. But what I didn't realize was how lonely comfort could feel. Daniel was kind but emotionally absent. Most days, it felt like I lived with a polite stranger. And then there was Aiden, his 21-year-old son. Respectful, quiet, always keeping to himself. I tried to bond with him in the beginning, but the age gap and awkwardness between step-parent and grown child made every interaction feel forced. Over time, we developed a rhythm. Nodding greetings, polite small talk, meals shared in silence. Nothing more. But something shifted over the past couple of months. Aiden became more withdrawn than usual. He'd skip meals, stay locked in his room, eyes hollow when they did meet mine. At first I thought it was stress or maybe heartbreak, but he wouldn't talk about it. I started worrying. Not in a motherly way. I was never that to him. But something else, something I wasn't willing to name yet. Then one night everything changed. I didn't mean to walk in. I swear I thought he was asleep when I pushed open the door to grab laundry. But what I saw froze me in place. He was on his bed, headphones in, completely lost in whatever he was watching. The glow of his phone lit up his face, his breath shallow, and then he whispered my name. Name. I left immediately, heart pounding, face burning. I couldn't believe what I'd just heard. Should have disgusted me. I should have been furious, horrified. But I wasn't. I couldn't stop thinking about it. That one word, my name, uttered like a prayer, haunted me all night. My marriage had been empty for years. Daniel hadn't touched me in months. I had forgotten what it felt like to be desired, truly desired. And now, suddenly someone saw me again. Someone wanted me enough to say my name in the dark when no one was watching. It shook something loose inside me, something I thought I buried. I told myself it was wrong, inappropriate, a mistake. But a deeper part of me, the one that felt invisible in my own home, didn't want to let it go. I started replaying moments with Aiden. Every small exchange, every accidental brush of our hands, every glance that lasted just a second too long. Was I imagining it, or had there been something simmering under the surface all along? The guilt came fast, followed by a strange thrill that frightened me. I wasn't ready to admit it then. But I'd crossed an emotional line the moment I stood frozen in that doorway. And the worst part, I didn't want to go back. After that night, everything felt heavier between us. He wouldn't look me in the eye, and I didn't try to force conversation. But I noticed the way his posture changed when I entered a room, how he tensed when I passed close by. I pretended nothing had happened, but my mind replayed it constantly. My husband remained away. Too buried in meetings and business trips to sense the shift in the house. I began waking earlier, choosing robes that clung tighter, letting my hair stay loose. It wasn't conscious at first. Then it was. There was no logical reason for me to care how I looked around Aiden, but I did. At breakfast, he'd steal glances when he thought I wasn't looking. I didn't stop him. I felt it too, that quiet charge pulling us together. The more we avoided acknowledging it, the louder it became. I started leaving my door slightly ajar at night. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to be noticed. I told myself I was testing him or maybe testing myself. I started looking for excuses to be near him. Handing him snacks, checking in about his day, lingering longer than necessary in the kitchen. We barely spoke, but the air around us buzzed. He wasn't just some boy with a crush. He was a man carrying weight I hadn't seen before. Sadness, anger, restraint. And for reasons I couldn't justify, I wanted to pull it out of him. One evening, I found him sitting silently on the couch, eyes blank. I sat across from him. He looked at me like he was about to say something but chose silence. When I finally said, "You've been so quiet lately," his reply was barely audible. "It's hard to pretend everything's fine." That hit me harder than I expected. Because I wasn't fine either. I hadn't been for years. I found myself thinking about his words long after he left the room. That same night, I heard muffled sobs through the wall. They weren't loud, but they cut through me. I knew I should have left him alone. Instead, I went to him. No words. I just sat beside him and waited. He wiped his face, ashamed. "You weren't supposed to see me like this," he whispered. I didn't respond. I placed a hand on his shoulder, and for a moment he didn't move. Then he leaned into me. That single gesture undid every barrier we'd built. When I finally stood to leave, he caught my wrist. "I'm sorry about the other night," he said quietly, afraid to meet my gaze. "You must think I'm disgusting." I told him I didn't. And I didn't lie. His shame didn't repel me, it drew me closer. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours, wondering how something so wrong could feel so intimate. I was no longer just his stepmother. Something deeper had taken root. And I wasn't sure I wanted to pull it out. The silence between us grew heavier, no longer from awkwardness but anticipation. He stopped avoiding me. Our interactions became charged with things unsaid. Every look held meaning. Every touch lingered longer than it should have. I noticed the way his eyes followed me when I walked away, how his breath changed when I stood close. My husband called one night to say he was extending his trip another week. I didn't feel disappointed. I didn't even pretend to be. That night, I lay awake wondering if Aiden was thinking of me too. The idea no longer frightened me. It excited me. I stopped pretending to be innocent in this. I leaned into the pull. He came downstairs shirtless after a run, and I didn't look away. He stood near me, close enough for our arms to brush. I didn't step back. He didn't either. "Is this what you want?" I asked, not in accusation but curiosity. He didn't say a word. Just looked at me like he'd been waiting for that question for weeks. I moved first. A touch to his hand, a glance that lasted too long. He responded instantly, like his body had just been given permission. When his lips met mine, I didn't resist. I pulled him closer. His hands were hesitant at first, then certain. There was no turning back. No pause to think about consequences. In that moment, it wasn't about right or wrong. It was about two people who had spent too long feeling invisible. I didn't feel guilt in his arms. I felt wanted, felt seen. His breath was shaky. His voice a whisper against my skin. "I've dreamed of this," he admitted. And I knew he wasn't lying. We didn't speak when it was over. The silence was heavier, but not uncomfortable. It was full of understanding. He lay beside me, fingers brushing my arm, and for the first time in years I felt at peace. I should have been consumed by regret, but all I felt was relief. Not because I had betrayed someone, but because I had finally done something for myself. Something that made me feel alive. He turned to face me and asked, "Was it a mistake?" I didn't answer immediately. I studied his face, the vulnerability in his eyes, and said, "It was real." The next morning we pretended it never happened. We passed each other in the kitchen like nothing had changed, but everything had. I watched him move, quieter than before but not with shame, with a kind of nervous pride. He didn't avoid me, but he didn't force anything either. I think we both knew the line we crossed could never be uncrossed. We were complicit in something too big to name out loud. I didn't need him to say anything. His silence spoke enough. I should have felt like I was unraveling. Instead, I felt like I was finally waking up. Daniel came back a week later, carrying the same cold energy he always did. He hugged me out of habit, not affection. Aiden stayed distant, polite but quiet. The air in the house felt charged, like something had been rearranged, but no one dared speak about it. I tried to fall back into routine, pretending nothing had changed, but I felt it constantly. This awareness, this invisible connection between me and Aiden. I caught him watching me more often, but now with restraint, not desire. He looked torn, like he was trying to pull back but didn't know how. One night, Daniel sat beside me on the couch and asked if I was happy. Not kindly, almost out of obligation. I looked at him and realized how far we'd drifted. Delight. Of course. He nodded and scrolled through his phone. That was the last conversation we had that week. Meanwhile, Aiden stayed silent, barely speaking unless necessary. But then came a moment I didn't expect. He waited until Daniel was upstairs before whispering to me in the kitchen. You regret it now, don't you? Paused, shook my head. I regret waiting so long. His face didn't change, but something in his eyes softened. It couldn't last. Secrets like this always have a shelf life. And ours expired the moment Daniel found my phone. I had left it unlocked by mistake. A simple message. That night. I'll never forget it. He read it. Came storming into the room with fury I hadn't seen in years. He screamed, cursed, asked me what kind of woman I was. I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I just stood there silent. Aiden walked in, sensing something was wrong. Daniel turned on him. Tell me you didn't touch her. And Aiden, eyes steady, said, I did. The room cracked open. Daniel broke a lamp. Threw something across the room. I thought he'd hit one of us. But he didn't. He left. The next day he filed for divorce. No discussion. No apologies. Just paperwork. I didn't stop him. There was nothing left to save. The house emptied slowly. Aiden and I didn't speak much after. We coexisted quietly, like two people haunted by the same storm. He asked me once, what now? I didn't have an answer. I just said, we keep breathing. Months passed. Daniel disappeared into silence, blocking both of us. No one knew the truth except the three of us, and none of us were talking. Aiden started working more, spending time away from the house. I thought maybe that was for the best. Then one evening he stood in the doorway and said, I meant everything I said that night. I still do. I looked at him, exhausted and raw. Maybe we were just two broken people in the wrong place at the wrong time, I said. He stepped closer. Or maybe we were the only ones who saw each other clearly. There was no closure. No fairy tale. Just a mess of choices and consequences. But sometimes in the quiet, I still feel that moment where everything stopped and something wild, dangerous, and real took its place. And I don't know if I'd undo it, even now.